Sometimes life doesn't just hurt you, it breaks you. And what most people say about this breaking is wrong. Not slowly, not gently, but suddenly and completely. One moment you were standing, and the next moment everything collapsed. Your plans, your expectations, your sense of control. And the most painful part is this: you never saw it coming. You tried to do the right thing. You trusted Allah. You prayed. You stayed patient. So when life broke you, a quiet question formed inside your heart. Why would Allah allow this? Maybe you never said it out loud, but you felt it deeply, because this wasn't a small test. This wasn't something you could simply stay strong through. This broke you in places you didn't even know existed. People around you kept saying things like, be patient, Allah knows best, or everything happens for a reason. But none of those words touched the pain. Because what you lost, what failed, what shattered meant something real to you. It wasn't just an event. It was personal. And it's okay if you don't have words for that pain yet. Here is something important to understand. Not every breaking is punishment, and not every collapse is a sign of Allah's anger. Sometimes Allah breaks what you are holding because it cannot carry you any further. Sometimes He removes what you leaned on so that you finally lean on Him. Allah reminds us in the Quran, indeed, with hardship comes ease. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. Not after hardship, but with it. Meaning, even while you are breaking, Allah is already rearranging your life in ways you cannot yet understand. You may not see it yet, and you may not feel it yet, but Allah was never absent in this pain. This reminder is not here to rush your healing, and it is not here to silence your questions. It is here to help you understand that what broke you did not end you. It began something deeper. Because sometimes Allah does not fix things the way you wanted. Sometimes He fixes you. So if life broke you in ways you never expected, you're not alone. Stay with me. This breaking was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of Allah's rebuilding. The moment life breaks you is rarely dramatic. It doesn't come with warning signs or preparation. It comes quietly, suddenly, and all at once. One phone call, one loss, one failure, one moment, and the version of life you were holding on to collapses in your hands. What makes this breaking so painful is not just what happened, but how unprepared you were for it. You thought you still had time. You thought things would work out differently. You thought this chapter wasn't ending yet. And when it did, it left you confused, disoriented, and emotionally exposed. In this moment, the heart doesn't immediately turn to reflection. It turns to shock. You replay the events again and again, searching for where things went wrong. You ask yourself if you missed a sign, made a wrong decision, or trusted the wrong person. And slowly that confusion turns inward. This is where many people misunderstand themselves. They assume the pain means weakness or the confusion means lack of faith. But the truth is much simpler. You are not struggling because your Iman is weak. You are struggling because the ground beneath you moved without your permission. Allah describes this human experience clearly. Surah Al-Ankabut, verse 2. Do people think they will be left alone just because they say, we believe, and they will not be tested? This verse is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to normalize what you are feeling. Faith does not prevent breaking. Faith gives meaning to it. Tests are not proof that something went wrong. They are proof that life is unfolding exactly as Allah allows it to. In the first stage of breaking, everything feels unstable. Your emotions fluctuate. One moment you feel calm, the next you feel overwhelmed. You may still pray, but your heart feels distracted. You may still trust Allah, but questions keep surfacing. This does not mean you are failing spiritually. It means you are human in a moment of loss. What breaks first is certainty. The certainty that life will follow your plans. The certainty that effort guarantees outcome. The certainty that good intentions always protect you from pain. When that certainty collapses, it leaves you vulnerable, and vulnerability feels frightening because it removes control. But vulnerability is not weakness. It is honesty. This is the moment Allah allows you to see how fragile your sense of security really was. Not to shame you, but to prepare you. Because what you were standing on could not hold the weight of what is coming next. Allah never begins rebuilding before the breaking is fully felt. Rushing past this stage only buries pain deeper. This phase exists so you can recognize what truly collapsed, not just in your life, but inside your heart. And once the shock settles, a deeper question begins to form. Not why did this happen, but why did Allah allow this to happen now? That question is not doubt. It is the doorway to understanding. Why Allah allows the breaking. Not punishment, exposure, and redirection. After the initial shock fades, the mind begins searching for meaning. You start asking harder questions. What did I do wrong? Is Allah displeased with me? Why now? These thoughts are natural, but they often lead the heart in the wrong direction. Here is a truth many people struggle to accept. Not every breaking is punishment. Many breakings are exposure. Allah is not destroying your life. He is revealing what was never meant to carry you in the first place. Think about what usually collapses when life breaks you. A relationship you depended on. A future you planned around. A version of stability you assumed would last. These things are not always sinful, but they are temporary. When the heart leans too heavily on temporary things, Allah gently, sometimes firmly, removes them. Allah reminds us of this reality. Surah Al-Qasas, verse 88. Everything will perish except Allah. This verse is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to re-anchor you. Anything that replaces Allah as your source of safety will eventually fail. Not because Allah is harsh, but because Allah is merciful and refuses to let your heart remain attached to what cannot protect it. Breaking is often Allah's way of interrupting a direction that would have hurt you later. He removes something now to prevent deeper pain in the future. What feels like loss is sometimes rescue disguised as grief. Allah also assures us. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 286. Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. This means the breaking was measured. Allah knew your capacity even when you didn't. He knew what needed to fall and what needed to remain. Your faith, your breath, your ability to turn to Him, these were not taken away. Exposure hurts because it removes comfort. It shows you where you were leaning too much, trusting too easily, or expecting too much from people and plans. But exposure is not humiliation. It is clarity. Allah allows breaking to redirect your heart, not to punish it. He strips away false supports so you can discover what real support feels like. He removes illusions so your reliance can become real. This stage is uncomfortable because it challenges your assumptions. It forces you to reevaluate what you believed was secure. But this discomfort is necessary. A heart cannot be rebuilt on unstable ground. Once Allah exposes what cannot carry you, He moves deeper. The next stage is not about circumstances, it is about what breaks inside you. What actually breaks inside you? It is not your faith, it is your identity and expectations. When life breaks you, it doesn't only take things away from your outside world, it quietly begins dismantling parts of your inner world. This is the stage where the pain becomes confusing, because you are no longer just grieving what you lost, you are grieving who you thought you were. One of the first things that breaks is identity. The version of you that knew where life was going. The version that had a clear role, a clear plan, a clear future. When that identity collapses, you feel lost, even if your Iman is still there. You may say, I don't recognize myself anymore. And that feeling can be frightening. What breaks next are expectations. Expectations of people, outcomes, timelines, and fairness. You expected effort to be rewarded, loyalty to be returned, and patience to lead to ease. When those expectations are shattered, it hurts deeply because expectations carry hope. Losing them feels like losing safety. Control also breaks. The belief that if you try hard enough, plan carefully enough, or stay good enough, you can prevent pain. When control is taken away, the heart feels exposed. But control was never meant to protect you. It only created the illusion of safety. Allah reminds us of this truth. Surah Al-Hadid, verse 22. ما أصاب من مصيبة في الأرض ولا في أنفسكم إلا في كتاب من قبل أن نبرأها. No disaster strikes upon the earth or within yourselves except that it was written before it occurred. This verse does not remove pain, but it gives it context. What broke inside you was never random. Allah was not reacting. He was allowing a process that was already known, already measured, already purposeful. Here is something important to understand. Allah is not breaking your faith. Your Iman may feel tired, but it is not what is being dismantled. What is breaking are the attachments you built around your faith, the belief that life must look a certain way for Allah to be good to you. This is why the breaking feels personal. It touches how you see yourself, how you see the future, and how you understand Allah's plan. And when those layers fall, you feel exposed and uncertain. But exposure is not emptiness. It is space. Space for sincerity to grow. Space for reliance to deepen. Space for a version of you that does not depend on outcomes to feel secure. This stage feels uncomfortable because nothing has replaced what broke yet. You are standing between who you were and who you will become. That in-between space feels unstable, but it is necessary. Allah does not rebuild on top of old structures. He clears the foundation first. And once that space is created, Allah moves into the phase, most people misunderstand the quiet phase, where it feels like nothing is happening. The silent phase, everyone misunderstands. When nothing seems to be changing. After the breaking and the inner collapse, a strange phase begins silence. This is the stage where nothing dramatic happens. No clear answers arrive. No sudden relief appears. Life continues, but the pain quietly stays. And this is where many people become afraid. You start thinking, if Allah is rebuilding me, why does everything feel the same? You look around and see no visible progress. The situation hasn't changed. The loss hasn't been replaced. The confusion hasn't fully lifted. And slowly, the silence begins to feel heavier than the breaking itself. But silence is not abandonment. Silence is preparation. Allah does not rebuild loudly. He rebuilds deeply. Before He changes what surrounds you, He strengthens what is inside you. This phase exists because foundations are formed quietly. What is rushed cannot last, but what is built slowly becomes stable. Allah reminds us in the Quran, Surah Yusuf, verse 87, لا تيأسوا من روح الله. Do not despair of the mercy of Allah. This verse was spoken in a moment of deep loss, not ease. It teaches us that Allah's mercy often works beneath the surface long before it becomes visible. The silence you are in right now is not empty. It is protected. Allah is shaping your heart in ways that do not announce themselves. In this phase, something subtle begins to change. You become more honest in your du'a. You stop demanding answers and start asking for strength. You no longer expect people to fix what only Allah can heal. These shifts may feel small, but they are signs that rebuilding has already begun. Allah also reassures us. Surah At-Tawbah, verse 40. Indeed, Allah is with us. Allah is with you in the silence, just as He is with you in clarity. He is present even when reassurance feels absent. This phase teaches you how to recognize Allah without needing constant signs, and how to trust without immediate relief. The silent phase is uncomfortable because it strips distractions away. You can no longer escape into busyness or noise. You are left with your thoughts, your fears, and your relationship with Allah. But this discomfort has a purpose. It trains your heart to rest without certainty and to remain connected without visible reward. If you are in this phase right now, do not rush it. Do not pressure yourself to move on. Foundations take time. Allah is not delaying you. He is stabilizing you. What He is building inside you must be strong enough to carry what is coming next. And once that inner stability forms, Allah moves from preparation to transformation. The rebuilding becomes visible not just in your life, but in who you are becoming. How Allah rebuilds the heart. From survival to sincerity. After the silence has done its work, rebuilding begins in a way that is subtle but powerful. Allah does not start by changing your circumstances. He starts by reshaping your heart. This is where the real transformation happens quietly, internally, without announcement. One of the first things Allah rebuilds is tawakkul. Not the kind that is spoken about, but the kind that is lived. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop panicking over timelines. You still try, but you no longer believe that everything depends on you. Your heart learns how to move forward without carrying the weight of control. Allah also rebuilds sincerity. Before the breaking, you may have done good while expecting results, appreciation, stability, or reassurance. After the breaking, your intentions become cleaner. You worship because Allah is worthy, not because life feels good. This kind of sincerity is rare, and Allah values it deeply. Allah reminds us, Surah Az-Zumar, verse 10, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Indeed, the patient will be given their reward without measure. Notice that Allah does not promise immediate reward. He promises unmeasured reward. What Allah is rebuilding inside you cannot be compared to what you lost. It carries weight, depth, and permanence. Another change begins to appear: emotional strength. You become more stable, not because life is easier, but because your heart is no longer attached to everything it once needed. You don't break the same way anymore. Pain still hurts, but it no longer defines you. Allah also rebuilds your relationship with du'a. You stop speaking to Allah only when things go wrong. You start speaking to Him because He is near. Your du'a becomes more honest, less polished, and more real. That honesty brings closeness. During this stage, you may notice that your faith feels quieter but stronger. You don't chase emotional highs. You don't measure Iman by feelings. You measure it by steadiness. By showing up even when it feels dry. By trusting Allah even when answers are delayed. This rebuilding is not rushed because Allah is forming a heart that can carry more responsibility, more clarity, and more trust. A heart that will not collapse the next time life becomes difficult. What Allah is building inside you now is not meant only for this season. It is meant to last. And once the heart is rebuilt, the effects begin to show outwardly in how you live, choose, and protect yourself. The new you that emerges, stronger, softer, and more anchored. When Allah rebuilds you, the change is not loud. There is no dramatic announcement, no sudden feeling of arrival. Instead, you notice it quietly in how you respond to life. The same situations that once overwhelmed you no longer shake you in the same way. You are not numb, you are grounded. The new you is stronger, but not hardened. You no longer confuse strength with emotional suppression. You allow yourself to feel, but you don't let feelings control your direction. You understand that pain can exist without defining who you are. This balance is something only experience with Allah can teach. You also become softer, more compassionate toward others, more patient with yourself. You no longer judge people quickly because you know how much can be happening beneath the surface. This softness is not weakness. It is wisdom formed through hardship. Allah rebuilds your sense of boundaries. You no longer give endlessly to the point of self-loss. You learn when to step back, when to say no, and when to protect your heart. You stop chasing validation from people who cannot give you peace. Your worth becomes less dependent on approval and more rooted in who you are before Allah. Your relationship with Allah also changes. You no longer approach Him only with urgency or desperation. You approach Him with trust. Your faith becomes calmer, steadier, and more consistent. You may not feel the same emotional highs, but you carry something far more valuable, stability. Allah describes the outcome of patience beautifully. Surah Ash-Sharh, verse 8. وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. And to your Lord turn your longing. This verse captures the heart of the new you. Your longing is no longer scattered. It is directed. You know where to return when life feels uncertain. You know where safety truly is. The new you does not expect life to be easy, but you trust that Allah will be enough. You stop asking for a pain-free life and start asking for a heart that can handle life with faith. That shift changes everything. This is why Allah does not rebuild quickly. What emerges from this process is not fragile. It is not dependent on circumstances. It is anchored in Allah. And once you see who you are becoming, another realization follows the breaking you went through was not random. It was purposeful. It was protective. It was mercy in a form you did not recognize at the time. Why this breaking was mercy. Protection you could not see at the time. With time, a realization begins to settle into the heart. This breaking was not random. It was not pointless. And it was not meant to destroy you. What once felt like loss slowly reveals itself as protection. At the moment of breaking, you only saw what was taken away. You couldn't see what Allah was saving you from. You couldn't see the future harm you were being redirected away from, or the version of yourself that would not have survived if things had continued the same way. Allah tells us in the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 216, you may dislike something while it is good for you. This verse is not meant to dismiss your pain. It is meant to expand your perspective. Some losses protect you from deeper heartbreak. Some endings prevent greater damage. Some delays save you from outcomes you were not ready to face. Allah's mercy does not always arrive as comfort. Sometimes it arrives as interruption. He stops what was moving in the wrong direction. He removes what was slowly draining you. He breaks what would have eventually broken you in a far more painful way. Looking back, you may realize that what you begged Allah to keep would have harmed your faith, your peace, or your future. And what you cried over losing became the very thing that pushed you closer to Allah. That shift alone is mercy. Allah also reminds us, Surah Ash-Shura, verse 30, وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَيَعْفُو عَنْ كَثِيرٍ. Whatever hardship befalls you, Allah forgives much more than He tests. This verse does not blame you. It reassures you. Allah's forgiveness outweighs your pain. Even in breaking, mercy surrounds what you can see. The mercy of this breaking is not only in what was removed, but in what was built. You now carry clarity. You now carry boundaries. You now carry a deeper connection with Allah. These are gifts that ease alone does not produce. What once felt like the end was actually a redirection. What felt like abandonment was actually closeness. What felt like collapse was actually construction. This is why the breaking does not define you what Allah rebuilt does. And when you reach this understanding, the heart no longer asks, why did this happen to me? It asks, what did Allah save me for? That question changes everything. Now all that remains is to close this reminder by returning the heart gently to Allah with trust, gratitude, and hope. Allah was rebuilding you all along. If you've listened this far, understand this clearly. You were never broken to be abandoned. You were broken because something stronger, wiser, and more sincere needed to be built inside you. Allah did not leave you when life collapsed. He stayed closer even when you couldn't feel Him. What you went through was not wasted pain. Every tear, every moment of confusion, every silent night carried meaning. Allah did not rush your healing because what He was rebuilding required depth, not speed. And what comes from Allah's wisdom is never careless. You may not return to your old life, and that is not a loss. That life carried versions of you that could not survive what Allah is preparing you for. What you have now is a heart that knows where to turn when answers are missing.